Hello, welcome. I should probably not share this screen and move over to. Hey, where'd you go? Move over to this screen that was supposed to be full screen. There we go. Let's see if there's anyone in Twitch world yet. Nope, don't want to code it live. How about me? Twitch Inception here. Okay, well, I'm going to get started. Today we are going to talk about, or more so I'm going to talk about, adding mocking to our contact application. One of the things I wanted to point out is I cleaned up the outline a little bit to flow a little bit cleaner and be a little bit more consistent in the layout. So here I have the header tags, and then I added the video and source code a little bit differently so it's consistent throughout the documentation. So we are up to this point so far where we've introduced the quote-unquote poor person's dependency injection. In the upcoming days, we'll probably go through and add real dependency injection once we start creating the web API to it. So quick recap, where we have a business layer built out, we have our models built out, we have our data layer built out, we added unit test. Yesterday during the dependency injection, we did a bunch of refactoring to put our individual data classes into their own separate class libraries so that later on we can go and change them. So let's take a look at the code. If we look at our Explorer here, we have our console app, our data app, data.sql, which is the implementation of the data, our domain class, which has all of our models in there, and our newly added interfaces. We then have our logic or business or service layer, depending on how you look at it, and then our unit tests. So one of the things that you pointed out in yesterday's stream, if we look at our contacts, so right now we're at number 27. If I run all the tests, you'll see that because of the way we're doing this, we're actually writing to and from the database, and that's not something we want to do. We want to only write to the database with actual interactions. Our test cases should only test out our business logic. So they should really only test out this portion right here. They shouldn't get any lower than that. So they shouldn't go with data. They shouldn't go in data.SQLite in this particular case. However, if we look at it, we see we have a new record added, which we want to avoid. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. There is a common term in the unit test world called mocking and or faking, depending on how you look at it. Mock, MOQ, is a very popular library that does mocking for you. I have a link to it on the outline page. And the other one is the Microsoft's Fakes framework. We're going to cover mocking for now. If we have some time, we'll probably go through the Fakes framework. I've never used it before, but we're all here to learn, right? So I'll go through and learn with the rest of us. So mock has some pretty good documentation as to what to do. Essentially what you do is create a mock based on an interface. And what mocking really does is it pretends it's the class you want. So if we look at this here where it says, I love this library, it's going to create a fake object that looks like the I love this library, which is really cool to some extent. What that does is it says, okay, whenever you get calls to this, pretend to do this. And the way you pretend to do this is using the mock setup. So this says, hey, when I get a request for I love this library, or I need an object from I love this library, let's do this. So whenever I get a call to the method download exists 2.0.0.0, return a true. And then here we create an instance of it. So here it says, hey, I'm going to create an instance of this object, and then I am going to call the download exists method. In this particular case, we are going to say, yes, it exists. The optional times at most just indicates how many times this method was called. We're not going to really go through that. So you'll see that when we get to our unit test, this really helps out a lot when it comes to avoiding calling databases or your dependent APIs when you just want to test that certain things are happening. So let's take a look at how we do that with our current user interface. So I'm going to go and close all the windows but this. Close others, and let's minimize you for readability, and now we have our unit tests. So if we go through our unit tests, we'll see that we have them in lots of different points. If we start off with this one, we are expecting a null object. So we're going to want to mock out this, not necessarily the contact manager, but we want to mock out the repository. So if we look at our code base here, we have to mock out the interface. So let's go and do that. I am going to keep this live for a minute. Once we get through all the mocks, we'll comment out and or remove this contact repository altogether. So the first thing we do is actually add mocking to the mock package. So let's look for MOQ online, and you see we have this first one, which is MOQ. There's no fancy icon for it, even though it's an open source project. It's well maintained. It's just don't have an outline for it. So let's go and add it to our contacts.logic.test. Click add, install, and it was successfully installed. And let's just go up here and avoid that and do the using mock. So the first step is to create a mock. So I've only really just started using mocks. I don't have a great suggestion as far as what to do as far as naming. A lot of the conventions you'll see are just create something called a mock, so you know. I like to actually mock out and list what we're doing, just in case you're mocking out more than one thing. Repository equals new mock, and it wants to type for it. So yesterday we went and created interfaces for our repositories. So let's do I contact repository. So now we successfully set up the initial look at the repository. We're going to establish a mock for us to get contacts out of the repository. So now we have to set it up. So for this, if we look at our documentation, it just says mock.setup. So let's do that. Mock repository.setup. Now this is where you use a Lambda to set up what you want to do. So for right now, we want whenever the method is going to be called. So let's just do contact repository. So this is going to pass in an instance of it. Contact repository, and then say whenever we get a call to contact repository, sorry, what are we doing? Get contact, and we pass in an ID that is oh, I wonder if we can actually tell it something less than 0. I know there is it is any, oh, there is a range. Let's do that one. Is in a range, and then matches any value that is in a range specific lower bound of the range minus, let's do int dot min value, comma, and then 0, comma, where'd you go? And then we need the range. I don't know what a range is. Range is inclusive. The range includes to and from values. Range does not include. Okay, so we want inclusive, which is good. And then we do, what do we want after that? Did I close the right thing? Contact. It's complaining about something. What did I miss? Is it just this? Nope, I want something else here. Where is my list? What are you missing? Da, 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 da. Oh, probably wants this. The next thing is, what do we want to return? And we are going to return a null. What am I missing from here? It is range. Close that. Close that. I am missing something. What am I missing here? We look here. Oh, because I did this. I didn't want to do that. That's why. And this should be the word returns null. And let's fix this. So if I look, I got the expression right. And returns null. Why are you complaining? Cast first argument to null. Missed something again. Setup library.returns. Setup, blah, blah, blah. It is in range. Oh, do I have too many of these now? No, that collapses the setup. Got that there. Got that there. Why is returns null not working? Let's go and try this. Returns. Oh, because I need to specify. I had this problem all the time before. So we have to specify that it's going to return a type dot models. So it's going to return this, and it's going to return a null instance of it. Let's get rid of this. So it's a little dicey when you first get it set up. Once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to use. So now we say, let's create a mock of the repository of anything that is of type iContact repository. Now we're going to set up the repository to say whenever you get a call from getContact that is in the range from int min value, which is like minus 4 billion something, to 0, including both those numbers, I want you to return a contact object that's null. So here, our contact manager, we are going to do mock repository dot object. So now when we run this, we are actually not going to the database at all. Let's just add a little comment. Any number less than 0. Now this will still validate our unit test that it's coming back here, but it's actually not going to the database. So if we were to put a breakpoint here or a breakpoint here, this part will never get hit. Actually, not that line, this line. This part won't get hit. So let's do and debug our unit test. So we want this one, and we are going to debug the selected unit test. Now, if we coded the mocking correctly, we'll never hit that breakpoint. Which, if I did everything correctly, that should be the case. And success. It ran through and never actually hit that breakpoint. So we were able to test it out without going into the contact repository. So the real hard part of getting used to mocks is getting the syntax really ready with the setup. So let's go into the next one. So this one is get contact with a valid contact ID. So this, we can pretty much just copy this out and say here, this we want the minimum value to be 0 and the max to be int dot max value be inclusive, but in this case we want to return a new contact. And I really don't care about what the value is. We just want to return. Change instantiated type to no. That should work. Why are you complaining? Nope. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I want to do. Oh, I think I have to do this. New contact. Nope. Ah. Had this working yesterday. Where did you go? Where did you go? Setup. Let's view the quick start guide. Where's my quick start guide? There you go. Setup, return string. Matching arguments, matching property, matching events, matching callbacks. Where'd it go? Worst comes to worst, let's go and go to a previous example. So let me do writer, open up a new instance because I have another project where I have this working. And it's this project. Let's open you up in a new window. Let's go to my unit test once it's fully loaded. And Let's do our get. Oh, there it goes. I didn't create a value function for it. So it's just going to copy the syntax over. Now this should be something like this. Right? Turn contact ID equals new contact. And then here we want contact ID. And I really don't care about the other stuff. And why are you complaining? Invalid value type. What we're essentially saying here is give me the ID that was, oh, it's not ID, it's contact ID. I believe it actually wants the physical name of this, or is it lowercase contact ID? There it goes. No, he's still complaining. Nope, don't want that. Returns contact. Let me make sure I got syntax right. Because I'm returning as a value function, I don't need this. There it goes. And once you get the syntax down right or down correctly, it's golden. So this says for the contact repository, whenever anyone calls get contact and it's in the range from, we want this to be 1 because we don't want 0 in here, to the max value inclusively, return me essentially a new contact. We're going to take the contact ID and pass it in. By default, this function here will take match each argument. So if you have more than one, which we'll do in the first name and last name, we will return those back here. So whatever argument we pass in here, we're going to get back. So here you see we have hard-coded value of 1. So let's just do in the setup. Actually, let's change this first. And then mock contact repository dot object. And then let's set up var requested contact ID equals to 1. And this is requested contact ID. And then let's just make sure that is what we got back. So equals, this is what's expected, requested contact ID, and what was returned. So just to give a quick recap here, we are going to return an object that is a contact. We'll use in whatever parameter was passed into this. So in this case, it's requested contact ID. Then we're going to validate, we get back a contact that's not null. So it should return back this contact. And then we get the requested contact ID and make sure that it matches. So this one we will actually debug so we can go step by step and watch it in action. If you're watching the stream, say hi in the chat so I know you're there. Okay, so we created the object here. Let's step through it. Step over, step over. Now we are going to call the fake method. And now if we look at the contact object, we see a contact with the ID of one that was created. So the rest of our unit tests, the rest of the unit tests should pass, which it did. And to make sure I'm not fooling with the ID, let's just throw this, make sure the unit test fails. Or actually this unit test should pass, and then we'll pass in a negative number to make sure it fails, so that we have the configuration right. Hello, Robert. We'll get there in a minute with the stepping in of the code. And one last test, set it to 1000. Again, you shouldn't be doing this on a regular basis. I'm just doing this to show you that it is working. Why are you complaining? Oh. Run, and this test should fail. And then we'll reset it back to 1. If I really wanted to be fancy, I could make it a random number. Yep. And we got a failure here. Assert is null because that failed. So this should be something like random new random, and then I think we want to range seed of, well, let's just do 1. I don't want to mess around with figuring out what randoms are. Let's go with should return list. Pretty much the same as we did here. So let's go and copy and paste this. And I know, Robert, you don't like copy and pasting, but this is for our saving time with typing. So here we're going to say get contacts, and this should just always return a non-null list. So there is no parameters for it. And this returns a new list. So let's get rid of that and call this list of contact. And then lists are not in there, so I will add that. And then let's go and create a new list. So we do new contact. And then let's do contact ID equals 1, just so we have it. Why are you complaining again? Let's get this other new contact. Contact ID equals 2. And what I missed here, returns contact. Does it want a function again? Nope. Let's go back to the saved version. New, darn, stupid. Turns new list of contact. Silly mistakes. Showing type list can be accessed, match the preview. So let's clean you up. Formatting, and you are complaining about, yes, because I don't need you anymore. Yes, I am clearly returning a new list. So let's fix up the formatting a bit. Come on, fix up my formatting. There we go. So now I'm going to return a list. It's called get contacts. We make sure they're not null, and we know we added 2. So let's make sure that the count is equal. So we got count, and we are expecting 2, and contacts dot count. I can in theory go back and test it, but all I'm doing is testing that our data points are here. Okay, so here we are going to kind of step through some of the code. So this one requires a little bit more setup because we want an actual part of an application or part of a contact to go in as the input. So let's go here and do contact repository to get rid of that. And we are going to call the method, what are we testing now? Get contacts with full first name, with null full first name. So this is get contacts and then first name. Let's get rid of you for now because you're causing IntelliSense to go crazy. Get contacts, and I think it's first name comma last name. First name. Get out of my way. Contact.setup, contact repository.get contacts, and it's first name comma last name. And these fields are not set up, so we are going to get, I think it was first name, last name, right? Get contacts, yeah. So I want this to be null, and this to be, let's just say, Guadagno. And then we have an extra, put some single quotes around that bad boy. And then we are going to dot returns. And here we're gonna wanna return the exception. So let's go and return an exception. So let's go back to my sample that we have that returns an exception, which is somewhere around here. Control F, throw. Oh, I actually don't have to mock. I don't have to set up the throw in because it's automatically going to throw the exception. So there's no setup for that one. So I'm not even going to call the returns. Or actually, I think I just have to call return. Essentially say it's going to return a void. Too many. Yes, too many. Dot returns. And one too many of those bad boys. Here you go. So now we're going to call get contacts with null here. And then we need to create the contact manager. Var contact manager equals new contact manager, pass it in the mock repository.object. Now I run. Let's make sure the unit test runs and then we'll step into it and see the code. It's pending and it's a success. So let's go in, as Robert requested, we will go in and put a breakpoint here. So we're in the contact manager and we are testing, extra code. We are testing this. So we should see, should break here. And then I'm going to hit this breakpoint for the next test. I don't know why I tested last name first. It really should be in this order. First name's the first parameter. I don't know why I did that. So let's go and make sure. So we should actually never hit this line, and we should get in this code. Let's go to our test, and I'm going to breakpoint here. Actually, no, I'm not going to breakpoint here. I'm going to breakpoint here and make sure that our code gets calm. Already here, let's step through the next one. Oops, what'd I do? I hit the wrong step through. I go through all kinds of, there it goes. I hit the wrong step through button, so I stepped into code that wasn't mine. Okay, so here you're gonna see the first name. Right now, writer is telling me that it's null, so I should, in theory, get to this part. Let's go. You get to throw new exception and hit play through, and the test pass. Should be able to do the same thing for the last name. So let's go and copy out the rest of this. Let's get rid of that extra line. And for our last name, this should be Joseph, and then this should be null. Now if I run this, let's debug it. Forgot to mute my cell phone. You should get to that same method. First name is passed in as Joseph, so I can step over this. Next one, this is null, so I should throw the exception, which I do. And we will do one more test with both items passed in. So let's go here. So we are looking at using Joseph Guadagno. So here, if the parameters are Joseph Guadagno, we are going to return a new contact. And actually, no, let's do it this way. Let's not hard code it. We will do, well, let's fix this first. We are going to do a new and then string first name. That one crazy. Comma string, this is first name, comma string last name. And then I think this needs to be wrapped. Return a new contact. Why are you complaining? Oh. New list of contacts. And we want the first one to be return. We want the first one to be new contact, and contact ID has to be non-zero, so we'll just do 1. comma, first name equals first name, comma, last name equals last name. You're completing because you're just going to do a lambda here. I don't know why I actually have to put in a name here. But since we added the assert, let's do equals. And we are going to set up some new parameters. Var requested first name equals Joseph. Var requested last name equals Guadagno. And let's do requested first name, comma, requested last name. And then here we do requested first name equals contacts, and we're going to take the first one dot first name, and then assert dot equal requested last name equals contacts 0 dot last name. Now if we run this, our test should be fine. I want to find a way to substitute this out so I don't have to hard code the name there. Let that run in the background and I'll see if there's a setup way. Oh, that's right. I can do is any string. What am I talking about? Dot it dot is any string, comma it dot is any string. I'm saying give me any string for the first parameter and any string for the second parameter. Then I'm going to use those and return back. Oh, this needs to be cleaned up. There it goes. And I should go and do that for this. Dot it is any string this should be wrong. This should have been this. I guess technically that's a string. And then it is any string. So I cleaned it up so there's no hard coding there. There's always going to be hard coding in these asserts where you're trying it out because you have to pass in some parameter, but at least the setup is generic. So here I should return at least one ID. Let me run all of the tests, and some of them have failed previously. Would you not want to use constants for those strings? And if not, why not? Yeah, it's recommending constants. I'm only doing it mostly for branding. But you can set up a set of constants ahead of the time. So if I look at this, it's going to suggest to make them constants. Wouldn't really do it in the entire class, like have a whole separate set of constants that pass in, because ideally you want all of these tests to be self-sufficient, and I shouldn't require any code to run. So in theory, I should just be able to run this with nothing else set up outside of any references. So these are all self-sufficient as individual units in this overall testing. I just like typing vars, easier than doing constant string. But that's just me being lazy. Now save contact, very similar. Let's do the setup. Except this is going to be save contact, and null is being passed in, and we want to return nothing. So this should be it. No, we want null here. And I just think I need an extra. Yeah, there we go. And then this should be mock repository.object. And this test should pass. So far, we haven't seen anything where I'm actually going to a database. So we got about 10 minutes left to normally scheduled time. How many tests do I have for save context? We got save with no first name, no last name. Constants are really so you don't put Joseph twice in the same method. Yeah, that's true. Which is why we cleaned up a lot of this so we don't see it anywhere but here. Oh, missed one here. Oh. No, we're good so far. So we got save contact with null first name, null last name, null email address, birthday. So there's a lot of those. Let's cover one just to show that we're actually not going to the actual repository again and not saving it. So this one, a valid contact. So we have a valid contact here. We'll use this in the array. So we are going to do var mock or contact repository equals new mock I contact repository mock repository dot setup. And I already forgot the syntax for it. It's problems when you copy and paste. So let's go up here. Contact repository. Contact repository. This can be anything you want. And then we're going to do contact repository dot save contact. And then this should be it.is any contact. So if it's any contact, it should return this bad boy. So I am going to copy this to up here ahead of it so we have a reference to it. And let's call this test contact. And then where are we? One more. Dot returns test contact. I'm missing a greater than sign somewhere. Setup, contact. Do I need to? No, I did that last time. Setup, save contact. Is any contact. Closing that. That returns. What did I miss, Joe? Come on. Where's my save contact? Save presentation 3. Kind of right. Save presentation. So we got it. Is any contact. Close it. Close it. Now we're good. And we are going to return. And what are you complaining about? I have one too many here. Setup closes, returns, contact. I missed something again. What did I miss? Oh. Duh, we were not going to return a new contact. We were going to do return contact. And then we want it there, and we are going to say return the contact. That was rough. So here we are saying, and I can actually move this back down now. Here we're going to set up the contact repository. So anytime you pass me in a contact, I am going to just return you that contact. And what I miss here again, returns. I got it right. Value, presentation, presentation, input. Complaining about the name. Oh, no, in our save here, silly here. I'm not actually comparing the contact, because in this particular repository, I am not saving it. I'm returning a true when I save it. So here, let's do contact. And then I am passing a contact and then including whether or not it was saved. So let's go to our data layer, data repository, and go to save here. And make sure this bad boy is not called. Sorry about that. I was getting two projects confused. The one I used yesterday, or this sample app with the save presentation, it actually returns the class you're saving, whereas this one just returns a true or false. Hey, what's up, Woody? Thanks for joining. So here we're going to just return a true. So we create a dummy contact, and then we save the contact and comes back to true. So let's go and debug and make sure it gets called out. Hey, why did you get called? Oh, I forgot to mock it, dummy. Let's stop this. I forgot the important step. Got sidetracked there. We're still using the contact repository here, so it should be mock.object. So here you see it actually worked the way it was intended. It was going to call the demo library. Let's go and check the class to make sure that the save is not working. So we look here, we have 31. latest ID is 31. So if we go here, run this, we should see that it's 1, not calling the actual save, and 2, we don't have a database record updated. So test is pending, it's running, and it was successful. So I hit debug, it ran, it didn't execute that code, so it didn't come to the repository. This breakpoint was never hit. And if I go and look here and hit refresh, which is Control R, still at 31. You don't understand what mock contact repository object does. Okay. So you might have missed the first part of it. So to explain it, there's essentially 3 steps to it. The first is you are creating a mock here. The mock says, I want to fake out anytime you want a reference to something that implements eye contact repository. So that's our mock repository. Then we do a setup of that repository that says, okay, if someone calls this repository, so contact repository, that's the method being passed in here. I can call it anything I want. Someone calls the save contact, passing in anything that is a contact. I want you to return true. The next step is where we're actually arranging it. So here we're going to say contact manager, I want you to give me that fake object. So this is the actual fake object. So now if the contact manager, and you might not have been on the stream yesterday, but we introduced the contact manager actually requires us to pass in the contact repository to use. So this contact repository says, give me what's going to be storing the data. The only reason why that one called the data is because I was passing in the true contact repository. So if you see here on this method, I'm truly passing in the database object. This one I'm saying, give me a fake database object, so I'm not calling it. So when I did the first debug, I forgot to change that, but this, after I ran it the second time, I changed it, so now it's going to give me the dummy or fake contact. Is that clear? What is the type of mock constant repository? Mock, that is of type eye contact repository, which is what we're passing in. So yesterday we added in the dependency injection to say this. So our eye contact repository has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 methods in it, and the mock framework MOQ is going to create dummy objects that have these 6 methods on it. So if we were to breakpoint on our test right here and take a quick look at the mock repository object, we'll see it looks very similar to the actual contact repository that we're not calling anymore. So let's see, we got this. I don't want that. I don't want that. Mock repository dot object. So if we look here, we see it's a mock of eye contact repository, and my head's in the way, so let me bring this up a little bit. So we see here, let's see if I can increase the font a little bit. Control Shift plus. It doesn't work in this browser window. We have an object. So if we look at the mock object and open it up, we'll see it's still protecting it, but because we don't have the objects to it, can't really see any of them. But if I was to go and do my debug window, which is here, and no, I can't do that. Debugger here, and then one of these bad boys here gives me the ability to go and edit it. It's a little bit harder in Writer because I always forget where the syntax is for it. It here? No. It here. Woody, if you're still on, you can tell me. I can go. I did it once before, but I forget where it is. There it is. Evaluate expression. So if I do mock contact repository dot object dot, and I'll see all the methods. So it is pretending to be an I repository. So it created these fake methods to go along with that. So I'm actually not calling the database. I cleared that up for you, Robert? I'll wait a minute for you to answer. Cool. So now if I run this, it's not gonna run. However, oops, I hit the wrong run button. However, if I go and change this to use the repository, which we instantiated earlier, this is an actual true connection to the database. So I can go and use whichever one I want. And we'll go through and change all of these here, or I will go and change the remaining of these after the stream is done, which I am done with now. So if there are any other questions, the source code will be sent up in a little bit, probably in another hour and a half or so. Got to go make dinner, feed the animals, then I'll come back, clean up the rest of the mocking, and then commit the code along with the videos. So if there are no other questions, I will bid adieu. You can still chat and answer any questions and go back. If not, it was great chatting with you. And that is all, folks.